The amazing Digital Circus has returned sooner than anticipated. This trailer took many of us by surprise, but if there's anything interesting about it, it's that it changes the perspective many of us had on what episode 6 could be about, and many scenes make this clear. It feels as if what was shown at San Diego Comic-Con was just bait for us to theorize, and then boom, the real plot of the episode would arrive. We'll see how we go from a supposedly more tense, trust-focused plot to an episode completely out of regular show or a battle royale worthy of being featured in its own video game centered on these characters. But what this preview does do is show that even so, there are several interactions that will change forever and characters whose personalities we hadn't seen come to light yet. Or maybe we have? Chapter 1, What We Were Shown. At the San Diego Comic-Con held this past July, there was a small space dedicated to glitch production, which was attended by part of the team from the Digital Circus series. Among them, the creator, Gooseworks, and some voice actors like Michael Kovac. Within this small space, a short preview of the next episode was shown to those who attended, which showed us Kane talking about how important teamwork is. Zuba would reply that the one he should be telling that to is Jax, since he always breaks the team's unity with his antics. Afterward, Kane tells them about today's adventure, which will be a trust exercise among the team members, where they will have to enter a white room in which nothing can be heard from the outside, and they will have to enter 2 by 2 to perform a trust exercise with one another. The thing is, one of them will have a real and loaded weapon. Now, what one might assume with this preview is that there would be scenes of tension between each of the circus members, but more specifically between Ragatha and characters like Pomni or Jax, and even more specifically with the latter because of the past that envelops them, and the mutual hatred they show each other. Additionally, episode 6 is Jax's episode, or well, rather, it's another shared episode between the two of them, only the focus will fall more on the rabbit. So, leaving them locked up alone with a loaded gun would not only be something to fear, but it would become one of the series' most powerful and debated scenes, as it would surely explore the problems of both characters. Adding to that, a week later, it was confirmed that the episodes released from now on will have an extended duration of over 30 minutes. So one wondered, if the episode was about a trust exercise, how would they correctly distribute those 30 minutes without the episode becoming heavy to watch? And most importantly, wouldn't that episode take long to come out? Well, it seems the people at Glitch Production didn't want to leave us with thousands of doubts hanging over us, and they directly released the trailer for episode 6, which completely changes the perspective one had of that episode and made it a bit more interesting, and above all, crazy. Chapter 2. Analysis of the important parts of the Digital Circus preview. Right at the start of the preview, we hear Kane introducing the next chapter as an episode where everyone will have guns.
On the next episode of the amazing Digital Circus, everyone gets guns! That's really all there is to it!
Quite possibly being the most legendary televised event of the series. What am I saying? Of the series? It's the event of the century, and he stresses this several times. Gooseworks said a while ago that from episode 6 onwards, things would get weirder. Well, this is definitely the calling card for the storm that's about to hit the series' viewers. In fact, on the Wacky Watch page, everything was themed like a war zone, where you could vote for your favorite team or for who you think would win the most epic battle you'll see in indie animation. 3 teams will face off to win. It's not known for sure what it is Kane told them they would get as a reward if they win, but it must be something very, very good. Moving on to the teams, we have Team Pew Pew, made up of Ragatha and Kinger, Team Unmasked, made up of Gangle and Zubul, and finally, the Bad Guys team, made up of Jax and Pomni. A curious name, knowing that DreamWorks recently released the sequel to the movie of the same name. Now, the trailer shows us several loose scenes from the chapter, which give us a little context about what will happen, and above all, why the teams were chosen that way. But before that, we have to point out that this trailer features several voiceovers from characters who have appeared in other trailers, like the narrator from episode 3.
Mr. Who?
I was supposed to be in this episode, but Kane removed me for being too gun.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Gooseworks also appears to express how difficult it is to work with a cast of characters as large as the one in the series, and a mysterious character named Mr. Gunn, who she mentions was removed from the episode for being too violent. Furthermore, Kane confirms what we had been told before. This chapter will be 33 minutes long, making it the longest episode of the series so far. And if this is one of the longest, just wait to find out how long the others will be if they are indeed coming out soon. Now, analyzing the scenes, we can see that the adventure will take place within the circus itself, making it a great opportunity to explore various areas that have never been seen before, since the last time an adventure was held inside the circus tent was in the first chapter. Now, you might be wondering, where does the scene we saw at San Diego Comic-Con fit in if the adventure was supposed to be inside a box? It seems that, for the most part, the scenes occur after that clip, as we see several members are given a large arsenal of weapons, to which Jax gets overly excited and expresses that he has been waiting for this his whole life. And why wouldn't he? It was literally shown in the previous episode that his mother taught him how to use them, plus he is always up for adventures with more blood and action. In fact, we see this scene where Jax is already walking around with a gun in his hand, and if you look closely, we can see Ragatha lying on the floor. This scene connects with this one that appears later, where it seems someone shoots her in the hands, and that someone obviously had to be Jax. Later, we see a scene where it seems Jax is bothering Gangle again, taking her comedy mask, but this time it seems the mask won't break, since later in the trailer, there is a scene where Gangle is crying and Zubul seems to be comforting her. In it, we see that she is holding one of her masks, and judging by the fact that Gangle is wearing her tragedy mask, that means Zubul took the comedy mask from Jax's hands. I theorize that in this scene, they're going to talk about something that was mentioned in the last episode. Curiously, a question the rabbit asked Pomni, whether it's possible for Gangle to be happy even without her comedy mask. Speaking of those two, in the previous episode, Jax told Pomni that Ragatha was actually a lie, and not just her, Gangle too. This idea is continued in this scene, where we see that Pomni is looking at Ragatha with a serious face, which would lead us to believe that the ragdoll wanted to team up with Pomni. However, not knowing if she could trust her, the latter preferred to go with Jax, since their relationship had grown stronger in the last episode. And as there was no one else left, Ragatha would end up teaming with Kinger, with whom it's seen in several scenes that Kinger seems to be an expert with weapons, although in others we see them both lose a life. It seems the life system may work like in a video game, and if you lose all your hearts, your team is eliminated. That's why Zubul and Bangle's team plays it safer, keeping their distance and aiming with a rifle. Other interesting scenes are the ones we see with just Jax and Pomni, since they started getting along better in episode 5. Here we see them laughing, talking calmly, and we even see Jax teaching his friend how to use a gun, and she seems to be learning to use them quite quickly. Then we see Pomni in a state we've never seen her in before, one where she seems to be having a very good time. So much so that she even forms a duo with Jax, very similar to that of the protagonist of Pulp Fiction. Many interpret this change in Pomni's attitude as being related to something Ragatha mentioned in the last episode, which is that Jax is manipulating her to behave like him. However, that's not the case. If you think about it, throughout her entire stay in the Digital Circus, we've never seen Pomni have real fun. The closest we've come to that is when we saw her feel comfortable with Gummy Goo, or when she felt at peace talking to Jax, or laughing at his jokes. But now that they're in a competitive game, she can be free to act crazy and have fun. There's even a scene where Pomni seems angry and Jax is in the background with a surprised expression, as if Pomni had snatched the gun from his other hand. Besides, it wouldn't seem strange to me. I mean, she's with someone she has fun with. There's even a scene where she and Jax spin while holding hands as they both smile. So this is Pomni, just a side of her that the closest we've seen is her evil version. And as a dangerous duo, they'll spend their time hunting their companions to win. However, it seems they're not the only ones who know how to use weapons. This is because we see that Kinger appears to be another character who knows how to use them. In fact, there are several sequences in the trailer where it looks like there's going to be a crossfire duel between Team Pew Pew and the bad guys team in the middle of the hallway with the members' rooms. A spectacular sequence, to be honest. Look, Jax for some reason is shooting from the ceiling, but returning to the point, let's remember that Kinger concentrates much better in the dark, so maybe the Funny Bunny team is facing some formidable adversaries. Nevertheless, on the other side of Kinger's team, we see Ragatha with a sad and worried face in the darkness, even as if she were about to cry, perhaps because of what happened with Pomni scenes before. But knowing she's teaming up with Kinger, it would be quite hopeful and nice for Ragatha to have a wise being like him help her move forward. Let's remember he already did the same with Pomni in episode 3, and now since Ragatha needs help more than ever, because every day she seems to be closer to the edge of abstraction, just like Gangle, well, help like his wouldn't hurt. In fact, both Gangle and Ragatha were the ones who thought this game was not a good idea, and that it wasn't something they needed right now. And lastly, and this is something very strange that is seen throughout the trailer, Jax seems to have gotten his tail back. It's not known how, as we recall that in the last episode he was shocked to notice he didn't have it. Chapter 3. It's still the same chapter despite the changes. If we think about it, what was being theorized was much healthier for everyone, since if there was tension between them, the best thing was to talk it out face to face. But knowing that Cain is a master of chaos, I'm not surprised that he tipped the scales towards something more dangerous, fun, and risky. So it's no surprise that what we saw was simply a far too pacifistic beginning, to be honest, only to then change into a literal war among everyone to make it more fun. However, at the end of the trailer, we can see the very inflated price of admission. Of course, this being just a joke and nothing more. Although for some reason, Cain mentions that the guns are not real. A curious thing, considering that the weapons we see bear the logo of the Cain and Abel company.